Hi all, and welcome to Data Lens, the short series where we talk about market research in the outdoor hospitality industry. Today, I'm here with Scott Barr, the president of Cairn Consulting Group. With over 35 years of market research experience, Scott has a wealth of knowledge to share, and I'm here to ask him the questions that you want to know. So let's hop in. On today's episode, we'll be talking about formal versus informal research, how to use both for smarter business decisions. So, Scott, before we hop in, any kind of comments, questions?
Mostly just to kind of introduce the topic. Informal versus formal is kind of in the eye of the beholder. It depends on how you look at it and how you approach it. But we'll talk a little bit today about some of the differences and kind of the benefits of each approach as well.
Alrighty. Well, with that, I guess let's hop in. So, kicking things off, Scott, from your perspective, what's the difference between formal and informal market research?
Truly, just in the reference of it is informal research is something that you do that isn't a system necessarily. It's much more casual approach in all likelihood. It could be you doing just about anything just to gather information. A lot of times it can be ad hoc. Something comes up and you're like, oh, I need to do some research on this topic. And sometimes it's again, informal tends to be a little bit more ad hoc, a little bit more casual. It's not something that necessarily people document a lot of in some cases, but it's an important part of the mix. And the difference with formal is that you actually implement a system for gathering information. It could be hiring a consultant like us to do research for you. It could be having an automated post-visit survey with your guests. Every time someone checks out, they're automatically sent a survey to fill out. That's a formal system. It could be you do an annual survey of your guests. It could be doing some focus groups or individual interviews with guests that you hire someone to do, and you document that and you implement it into your strategy. So now you're kind of formalizing that by actually doing a lot more documentation, by using it in different parts of your strategy. And again, the informal part is, again, maybe something comes up about a certain type of RV that you've been seeing a lot of at your park, and you might need to go out and do some research and some sleuthing, maybe make some phone calls to some people or some dealerships to find out some more about that RV and how you can better adjust to it at your campground. So that's a much more informal approach to the research.
Got it. No, that's really helpful and kind of an interesting differential between the two. But let's kind of continue on that train of thought. So when is informal research, enough for research purposes, and when do you need something more structured?
Informal is good when you're just getting started. If you've never done research before, it's a great way to kind of get your toes wet, just kind of, get in there a little bit, play around a little bit with some stuff, maybe, start talking to some people, do some, guest interviews, go to some conferences, talk to other people, see what they're doing, looking at best practices of other campgrounds and glamping parks. And that really is part of that informal process. And again, as I mentioned before, maybe there's a topic you just need to look up, spur of the moment, maybe someone asks you a question. In those situations, it's super important. You need that information, but it really is best for, again, ad hoc requests and getting yourself started in the process. Maybe you do some informal research before you engage in formal. And that could mean talking to some of your guests, maybe going and looking at some of your guest data from the past few years, maybe just looking at some outcomes, looking at some patterns that you see, and then using that to implement a research system, a formalized system of gathering information for your park, which is going to, in the long run, be how you want to approach it, because that formal system is what's going to really give you the advantage over your competition, over yourself. It's a way to have information gathering that is much more strict. It's much more valuable in implementing into your strategies. You're much more likely to place credibility off that formal research than the informal, again, just because methodologies tend to be a little bit more buttoned up. You can maybe make some projections based on that information. You can do some estimates based on potential growth based on that work. Versus, again, the informal stuff isn't going to be tight enough for you to use in that kind of a planning and strategic planning process.
Definitely. It almost sounds like the informal part is almost a part of that bigger theme that you had mentioned in another video about exploratory versus confirmation research, where it's like exploratory really looks at, it's just like, hey, you have this really unique question. Let's go and explore that topic and dive into it. And it sounds like, it's like that's kind of that curiosity, that initial step is where, you start with the informal, right?
Correct. Absolutely. That's a great way to sum it up, because it's a great way. It's just a great way to get started. It's fewer consequences too. For example, expenditures. Typically with informal research, you're not spending money. You're not putting an outlay of expenditures on the actual research, whether it's, again, hiring someone like us or maybe buying a report or something like that. You're actually doing it yourself, and the only cost is your time. And so the risk is a little bit lower, but it gets you out there. It gets you plugging away at it. And you're going to learn things you did not know prior to starting.
Cool. And just for clarity here too, so would you say that you can combine both approaches effectively? It's more of just kind of like at what stage of the handoff you're at.
Absolutely. To use the analogy of a complete formal system, in many cases, an organization will hire us, and we'll start off doing like in-depth interviews or focus groups, and we'll do some of that exploring of themes and so on with customers and prospects. And from there, we'll use that information to do maybe a much more broad-based survey of the market and so on. In this case, what we're suggesting is, instead of hiring someone for that first stage, those interviews and those focus groups, you do it yourself. It's a little bit of a DIY approach. Because again, if out of the gate, not knowing, you're really just kind of throwing some stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that, in terms of how the questions you ask, the information you get back, you're probably not going to know a lot of it. So it's a great way to start consolidating some of that information and then moving on to the more formal system from there.
Gotcha. All right. Kind of continuing on this train of thought. So how would you say that small businesses can use informal research every day, without realizing it?
Every time they do a Google search or an AI search, they're doing some informal research. You're asking questions. You're doing some research. Every question you ask is research. So every time you ask someone about something that you don't know about now, as it relates to your business, you're doing informal research. It's part of that information gathering process. There's the school of thought that it talks about the Socratic method, which is everything you do is the foundation of it is in asking questions, and questions that follow up other questions. And so it's all based on questioning. And that's, again, that informal approach, the questioning method of questions, again, it can be a phone call, it could be a meeting, video call like this, it could be one-on-one, but it is asking questions. And that's what it's really all about. It's you and your staff and your partners all asking those questions and using that information for your business. That's the informal method, and that's the best way to get started.
That's so fascinating, because I think that, in general, when we're talking to people and everything, and they think that market research is this this big, huge project that they have to go out and buy and have all this like bells and whistles. But from what it sounds like, and even in previous conversations, it's sounding like research is really just starting with simple questions and finding out that data. So it's absolutely fascinating, because people are doing market research all the time, but they don't even know it.
Absolutely. And I could give examples for the rest of the day of organizations who want to start with a gigantic project, a gigantic survey of a market that they know very little about. They haven't done that first step. And what happens in some cases is that at the end of the day, you start looking at your results and say, boy, this question really didn't work for us. And boy, I really wish we would have asked about this. That happens a lot. And it typically happens because the process really didn't start with that foundation. And the more you do that, the better you're going to be at like formulating your formal research plan. So absolutely get out there, ask the questions, start forming that foundation of knowledge. It's all part of this process, and it will make you better as you move forward and formalize.
Definitely. All right. Last question here before we wrap things up. So what does a formal research project with Cairn Consulting look like?
A formal project with us could be something that we're currently working on, which is we're working directly with an agency, a marketing and advertising agency, on a multi-stage process to do their creative development. So what we've done is we did a really small market-based test of some ideas that they had in terms of communication to see directionally what was coming out of that. And this could be what someone would say is if you're doing this informally, this is that those initial questions. It was pretty small, it was directional, but we got some ideas out of it. The second stage was to do a bunch of in-depth interviews with prospects and people within the category. So we did a bunch of those. We did 30 interviews, and we got a lot of detailed information. And the third stage is broad-based market survey that uses trade-offs and discrete choice analysis. That's going to help them segment the market and then develop their communications based on those different segments and personas that come out of this work. So that's fairly typical. That's a fairly typical approach. Many people we don't do that first stage with, but in terms of the shorter poll, the shorter survey, but we will do some initial sleuthing and a lot of secondary research, which is accessing existing sources of information. Other research that's already been done, we'll do that first, and then move on to the interview stage. So that essentially is what a typical project can look like for us. And a lot of times we do straight up surveys, but that there is really, it's kind of our preference and how we work, and we think it's one of the more effective ways of working as well.
Awesome. So just can you summarize that maybe in just like a quick one sentence, like how does the phases look and how quickly we move through them?
Phase one is informal and secondary research, but it could include some quantitative work. Phase two is qualitative research. Go out there, do some exploring on themes and ideas, interactive. And stage three is market-based, broad-based research that's going to give you the information to make market projections and develop segments and personas and so on.
Perfect. All right, that's all I had for today. So thanks everyone for joining us today for another episode of Data Lens from Cairn Consulting Group. Today we covered formal versus informal market research, how to use both for smarter business decisions. Wow, man, that's hard to say. All right, so don't forget to leave a comment or a question for next week's episode. Hit that like button if you like what you see. And as always, subscribe so you never miss out. Have a great day. Later.
Bye.